So good morning, everyone. And so now we have this talk on this kind of, on this, because in the last talk also just we finished. So there also we heard about this knowledge graph and linked data. Also last 2 days we were couple of times we heard about the linked data. So this talk is basically focused on that to clarify some of the ideas that I know that the some of our earlier speakers who spoke about these terms, they have already spoken about it. But still today I'm going to further express them further. I'd like to see that what exactly they stands for and how they are actually different from each other, because there are lot of technical jargons that we see, and sometimes we get confused ourselves because they are so randomly used, and different people pick up different terms to use. So we will try to clarify that idea, and also if time permits, and then we will also see a kind of small knowledge graph that we have built. I start before I start, so I would like to go through a video. I think that would give us that will actually create the background of this talk, and I request you all to listen to this talk. This is an excellent talk. I mean, it's not a talk, it's a small video clippings actually. Sorry, it's not a talk basically. I'm playing the video. You don't see? Okay. Yeah, sorry. To new share screen.
Data, even if you can't see it, it is all around you. It's there from the moment you wake up. It keeps you fit. It helps you remember. The world has changed and has become more connected. The way we buy, sell, travel, eat, sleep, and work. Technology will continue to change our lives. Connectivity is transforming society, our businesses. At BASF, we are on a journey. We have a challenging but exciting route ahead. Agility, iterative improvement, and early customer involvement are key to fully leveraging the power of digital technologies for BASF. We are transforming traditional siloed supply chains into a connected end-to-end system to better serve our customers. Digital technologies help us to further increase the effectiveness and efficiency of our manufacturing processes. With new business models, we are differentiating from competition and driving growth. Using smart data, we are developing new products, creating extra value for customers. We are driving the transformation. Our path is digital. Let's take it together.
Yeah, that's it about it. So you can see that how data that industry people basically, that I think they're very smart, and that's why they are doing a business. Of course they are into the business. The thing is that data is that, as the earlier also this yesterday's keynote speaker also spoke about, that data is actually is the new oil, right? So Data is very important, that we all understand, and even basically in the during the pandemic, I think that all of you actually came across of several data, and this is not just about this pandemic time, but I think this data is always there, like starting from like there nowadays that we see, you know, different tools that which gives you know, lot of, I mean, lot of sensors are around, right, that we have in our mobile phone, and then there are many other gadgets that are around, that we see that they have multiple number of sensors and they produce a lot of data. So the thing is that from this video, that what we understand, that actually you need for anything that you want to do, you need the data. So data is in the core. But now that the question comes that, okay, you know, that as also we know that the most of the data that whatever is available today mostly are the, you know, the unstructured data, and we have, of course, again quite a big amount of data that is also structured data. So the problem is that often we get confused. I mean, that's, of course, you know, when we talk about this, all these technologies that we are discussing in the last 2 days, and also we are going to talk in the next 3 days, that the confusion comes that, okay, what data we should deal with, what type of data we should deal with, and what type of data basically we are going to talk, because everything is data here, right? It's just the context, that how you, in which context you are talking about. So depending upon the context, we decide the data. So however, so before we proceed further, so I would like to say that mostly right now the focus of whether the link data that we are going to talk or the knowledge graph that we are discussing, so is basically we are right now focusing on the structured data rather than the unstructured data. But of course, it doesn't mean that we completely leave that unstructured data. Yes, we will be doing, and that's why there are a lot of technologies that we are actually basically, that NLP has a major role to play there. And but as the earlier speaker also said yesterday, that as per our you know, current situation, or as per our knowledge, that we don't have any such sophisticated NLP tools that which have some hope that can deal with this kind of unstructured data. So right now, and also the question is that when we have so much of structured data, and even if we can transform them into a kind of machine processable format, I think that would be also a great job done. Okay, so with that, so you know that we know that the most of the cases, this data, you know, that yeah, these are the different types of data that we are familiar, like scientific data, experimental data, statistical data, business data, library, and there are different types of data, as we said. Now, most of the cases, what happens that, you know, that you know, as a raw data, when we look at that data, we know that finding the information or getting insight or extracting the insight out of the data is not so easy. And quite often we see a different representation, like this. Some of the, you know, representations are here, that what we generally see here and there. And you know that they are good, but the problem is that, again, you cannot really do much things with this kind of data. Of course, they are still good, as I'm saying, that I repeat it again, that they are good, but again, you know, that machine cannot really process it. Again, it comes to the human being, human brain has to play a role there to further, you know, find out the insight or to extract the insight out of it. Okay, and that's where that we talk about that what we need basically, that we need to empower the user and we need to empower the machine. And so when we talk about that, so basically there are, of course, there are different approaches are there, but today I'm going to talk about these two fundamental things that nowadays that we are talking when we talk about in terms of the semantic data web. So we basically talk these two I mean, we basically find these two terms quite often, that is linked data and knowledge graph. And sometimes you know, we often get confused between these two terms, and also in between again another term that in fact last few days we are repeatedly listening to, that is ontology, and then semantic web. So these are several terms are there around, right? And so we try to understand them. So the first thing is that now, what is linked data? So linked data, as from the name we can understand, so that's basically the data that is interlinked. And remember here that here we are talking about the structured data, because when it comes to the unstructured data, as I said, that it's not so easy actually, and we don't have any such advanced technologies, at least as per my knowledge, that that we can really link the data that is there inside your text. Okay, like different entities like that. Yesterday also we spoke about it, day before yesterday in my talk also we said that whatever the content, that HTML page we are giving, like say in Wikipedia page, you have different names, different place name, person names, and different other events, and many things are there around, right? And right now we are not basically talking about that linking that data, because we are trying to transform that web of documents, that is linking that document links to the actually data link. And when we talk about it, we are basically, the main emphasis is going on the more on structured data rather than the unstructured data. So when we talk about the linked data, so we say that is structured data interlinked with other data built upon the web standards. Now this URI, HTTP, URI, and RDF, these are the technologies now we are already familiar. And that is where that when we talk about these different jargons, no, that whether we are talking about the let's say linked data, ontology, or we are going to talk about this knowledge graph, all these terms, that when we see, we need to look at the kind of technologies that we are going to use it. And remember that also while we are discussing that semantic technology stack, we said that basically the technology, that when it comes to the implementation of those technologies, we said that it always goes in the upward direction, right? And that's where, so when we talk about this linked data, it's basically that it talks about the technologies, or it utilizes the technologies like the base technologies URI and HTTP, and I mean HTTP URI and the RDF. Okay. And of course, here you see the difference. There are two terms like URI and HTTP URI. There is a difference because from my yesterday's talk, again, you saw that the schema like URI, and URI has like, URL and then URN. Because URI is the most specific term. So here, when we talk about the linked data, we can talk about probably the URL also is sufficient, okay, or URN also is fine. But then when we talk about the web, in terms of the web, at that time it comes that HTTP URI is more, the crucial thing, and that's why. So we always, always the developers, the researchers, they encourage to use the HTTP URI. But however, saying that, as you probably some of you already know, that there is like 5-star, okay, that again given by the Tim Berners-Lee, that your data can be given the different stars. Like there are different ways, like if your data is in PDF, what star you will get. If it is in Excel file, what star you will get. Like that, you have the different labels. And if you look at that labels, there you will see that if your data is HTTP URI enabled and it is linked, then your data gets 5-star. So that means that any data that you want to link, that is good. That is very good, that at least you are making available that data. Now, the thing is that what technology that you use, depending upon that, you make it, more useful for the others. And this is like the cloud, that this is a linked data cloud. This is taken from this linked data cloud site. And this is basically the size of this. And it's a huge, actually, the number is not here, but few millions of nodes are there. And this is just the subdomain. Now, the goal of the linked data is basically, to evolve the web like a single global database. In a sense, in the previous talk, I spoke about this, silos, right? We saw that each of these different applications, they have their own data standard, they have their own data, structure, they use different language, and maybe they have the structured data. In fact, not maybe, I think they have, all of them have the structured data. But the problem is again that, their data, they don't, they basically don't talk to each other. And that is where the linked data goal is basically to allow them to communicate and build a kind of global database, so that when we run a query, we get the answer, and not necessarily that it has to come from one place, it can come from any other place. And that's why, again, that the open world assumption and the closed world assumption, that's a very actually deep concept. Because as Michael was talking about yesterday, that if you have a, like, say for example, your library database, and you are asking a question, if some question you are asking, then if your database it doesn't know that answer, then he said that no, it really is a false, or it says that it's true. Whatever it is, whether it is true or false, that's basically kind of closed world assumption or closed world idea, because you restrict your search within a one single box. But it's not the case, because that's where that open world assumption comes into that picture, that if I don't have that information in my mind, I maximum can say that I don't know, but it may be out there somewhere. And that's where that comes the linking, that if you link the data nodes that are available across the different applications in different other various places, that if we can link them, then we can actually have a kind of distributed global database. Though they are distributed in different places, but they are basically because that we are going to link using those technologies, so they will be all connected, and that this technology are there already, that which can traverse from one node to the another node. So the technology that the software agent can traverse in the entire in the graph. So the benefits, of course, there are, these are some of the very generic, the uses, or you can say the benefits of this linked data, like we can have the integrated access to data, which already I said. Then enrichment, of course, it's like that if my data, like Professor Parthasarathi Mukhopadhyay yesterday was talking about, like poor man's mark, and then you have someone like rich person, like Library of Congress. So it's okay that I am poor, fine, but I can also enrich my my data by linking my data node with their Library of Congress or any other rich man data, or it's the same. So it's just the concept. So it's basically you share. So it becomes like a win-win situation for everyone. Then decentralization, this is of course like that we don't have to put it everything one place to make a single database. That's why we're saying that single global database, but in a distributed environment. Shared data, that empowers the idea of reusability, because we share the data. And data maintenance, data currency becomes very easy, because as you know, some of you may already know that in RDBMS, that's one of the major problem, that the data currency, because you know that updating the data, because say for example, if I have an application, and that application is running based upon the data that is available from someone else. So if anything gets updated there, then I have to also update my application with that new data. Otherwise, we can't be able to, provide the most up-to-date applications, or I mean, we cannot do any other thing based upon the most updated data. But with this, because the data will be in different silos again, but they will be linked. So anytime the data gets updated at the source, it will be reflected everywhere. The data maintenance, the data durability and robustness, then federated search facility, as I already said, the data are in different places, but then when I build an application, it can have these multiple nodes connected in the backend, and that can be actually, the federated search would be much more simpler, because you don't load only on one particular system, but you distribute your query to multiple systems. So in that way, we can have a very strong federated search environment of the system. Of course, the other implications also this has, like promote interdisciplinary research and independency from specific data format, because here that we are giving that, as I said at the beginning, the emphasis is on the technology. So if the technology is there, then if all of them use the same technology, then there is no problem of this interoperability. So we overcome the issue of the interoperability, because that is one of the major reasons that why one system, one machine cannot speak to the other system. It is because that they are not interoperable, they cannot communicate, they are not compatible to each other. Now, there are different tools are available for linked data generation, and today in the lab session, we are going to learn, of course, one of them is the GraphDB, and there we will be exploring, but there are beside that, like Google Refine, that yesterday also Professor Mukhopadhyay's talk was also, partially he touched upon on that Google Refine, and this GraphDB, of course, utilize the same, but it is much more improved version of that. And then there are, other than that, there are many other software tools are there, like Triplify, DB2RDF, but again, this is not a very exhaustive list. If you look at Google, so you will find that like hundreds of such tools now are already available. Then we need for this linked data, that is another most important tool that we need, that is the triple store. And this is like that, there are many triple stores, like already, like yesterday, this our invited speaker, Dr. Armando Stellato, he has already exposed you to this RDF for J. And of course, that's what that in fact GraphDB actually use that. And then we have, like, we are using Protege. So Protege also in the backend, it has the OWL API, of course, but then there are other tools are available, like say Apache Jena, Fuzeki, this is one of the tools. Then Virtuoso, it has both the enterprise and the open source version. So Virtuoso OpenLink. So, and there are Allogograph, that which we have used heavily for creating our that knowledge graph that I'm going to discuss shortly. So this is another, an excellent tool, I can say, in a sense that this is like a C. It has multiple features. It is really huge. We may not need for a one single application. We may need not to use that tool, but yeah, all of you can try, because they give some kind of free version also to run up to certain million of axioms. So this is a tool that we have already used, and that's a great tool that I can say. And there are like many other such tools, as I said, for storing your the data that you produce as a linked data. Now linked data. So obviously that when it comes to the linked data, because we said that okay, we use the technologies like HTTP URI and RDF. And you know that if you remember the first day talk, that on RDF is that what we were getting, that like just the RDF triples. So that's basically a linked data. Okay, so that data, that where you have the HTTP URI, you have the RDF, that data structure that you are using and producing a big graph. Okay, that becomes a linked data. So it's nothing but a graph, and to store that you need a triple store, and those are the tools that I spoke just a few minutes ago. They are basically the triple store. And now the question comes that okay, I create in my local system, that's fine, but then how do I share? What would be the, because this often that this question we come across, and we see in different forums that the beginners, the many researchers, they ask that question, that what do we do with this produced data, the linked data that we have produced. Now the question is that if you want, you can dump it somewhere, maybe on your own personal web server, so that others can download, any other software tools can download it, or any other human being can download and utilize for their work. Or if you have that infrastructural facility, then the best way is the SparkQL endpoint. And this is again that, of course, we are going to again cover this in our lab session. But the thing is that the SparkQL endpoint is one of the best possible way that through which you can share the data that you produce. Whatever the data that you produce, you don't give them as a RDF dump, but you you give access to your data by by this service. So you give this as a data service, so that like this looks like this here, as you can see. So this is your SparkQL endpoint, and they are like any software tools, any software, they can also get access to that data, or as a human being also I can go and ask the queries. Okay. Now there are different, there are various examples of the SPARQL endpoints, like DBpedia has a huge collection. So if you want to access to their data, you can log into this page. Then there is Agrobot Thesaurus, like this Armando Stilato the other day was talking about it. So you have, this is the SPARQL endpoint for it. Then you have the gene ontology endpoint, and like that there are multiple such endpoints are there on the web available already. Now, in linked data, of course, there are certain issues that which maybe some of you can explore. Like one of the major issues that comes, that when, because this is actually in general, it's not just very specific to the linked data, but again, it's also applicable for linked data, that the quality. And then the another problem comes, the fusion. The other thing is like that, okay, I publish my data, but you also produce, you also publish your data, but then how to link them, how to further connect them, okay, how to bring them. There are a lot of conflicts will be there, possibly there are we can imagine that the within the same domain there are possibilities that the way I link my data, maybe the other person, but they are using the same technology, but the way they connect and the way I connect, maybe there will be some kind of confliction. So how do we basically again manage that? Okay. And then of course the trust and all, there are many other issues that are part of this linked data and linked data studies. Now, going back to this, our second talk, that is second topic, that is knowledge graph. And so the knowledge graph, so what is knowledge graph? So before we explore, because already we have heard this knowledge graph, and I believe that by now we have some tentative idea about the knowledge graph. So however, as I said, that we will be going through it again. So before we understand the what is knowledge graph, so first we look at this graph, because this is the another term that we are repeatedly using in the last, I mean, almost in every sessions. So its graph is basically a universal way of representing and connecting the data, where graph, you can say that is basically a set of elements called the vertices, and E is set of two sets of vertices. So in a sense, so like here, this is a like pictorially it has been represented, like you have this here, like it's a graph in a sense that it contains a set of vertices, and it also contains a set of edges. Okay. And then what we have, that means we have just the vertices or the nodes, and then we have the arcs or the edges. So like here, contents, links. So these are basically the edges that that we know, right? Now, if we look at this same, I mean, this is the the actual data. Like here we have the set of nodes, like here that is a kind of one node, and then we have the kind of edge that connects to another one, like fever. Okay. And the same way, so like this, that ultimately if you look at this, they are basically kind of one simple statements, right? And this, like that multiple statement, when we connect together, we form a bigger graph. Okay. But it itself is actually a graph. Okay. Now, what is knowledge graph? So this is one thing that will this is to clarify this, or to understand that when we use the term semantic web and when you use the term knowledge graph, how they basically are different. Honestly speaking, there are no much differences between them, except some small technology uses, but otherwise overall they are the same technology that we spoke about, the semantic web, the vision of semantic web, and the similar technologies are also used or proposed for this knowledge graph as well. So what is a knowledge graph? No, knowledge graph is a manifestation of an intelligent web of data informed by an ontology. This is a very crispy, you can say that a definition, which I liked it a lot. And of course, I have modified a little bit, but originally it was given by Ian Kingsley. He is one of the guy from this Virtuoso Link. And so he gave that definition, which I have little bit modified and said that it's basically a manifestation of an intelligent web of data informed by an ontology. So what you have basically essentially here, that you have a set of documents, right, as we have in general on the web, and then you have like hypertext. That's what we are familiar, like that document text. And then we have, this is what we are seeing, that where we have like this ontology, right? This, so sorry, the data, the actual data that you have, and then you have the conceptualization, or you can say that the ontology, that where you have the T box, that what Professor Srinivas Kumar was also talking about, the T box and A box. These are the two essentially. This is like the A box and this is the T box. And when we get this, all this forms a knowledge graph. That's why we are saying that it's an intelligent web of data informed by an ontology. So you have the T box, you have the ontology, and you have the data inside it. So ultimately, that what we are talking about knowledge graph is nothing but the kind of knowledge base that we are, I think, more or less now familiar with that, because we did yesterday that Protege tutorial, and we did all these things. We created the classes, we created the properties, we made a model, and then we also created some individuals. That means we created the A box, right? So that's this the main idea behind this knowledge graph. But of course, again, I can tell you one thing, that there is of course there is a lot of debate again, that the different communities define it in differently. But I think this is the most convincing way of considering what knowledge graph is. Okay, and so why knowledge graph? So I quickly pass through some of the whys. So here the first thing, as Michael also I think pointed to, that this, that industry was not very much were interested to this semantic web, because many people thought that it's going to fail like the artificial intelligence failed. But again, as Michael also said, even I also feel that artificial intelligence apparently looks like it failed, but it didn't fail. And that's why I think again it has come back, and again we are talking about the artificial intelligence, but it's like in a renewed way. So it's in a we are talking about with much more maturity. Probably at that time, we didn't have the enough technology to really show the actual use. Okay, so here the thing is that as the industry, they got attracted to this idea the moment that Google that came out with this term, that they just used this term knowledge graph in their one of the paper, that is in 2012. And then since then, that I think by now all the major companies, like say for example, whether it is Google, Google, of course it's there already, Facebook, or you talk about any other big giants, bigger even Microsoft, all of them are actually already either they are in or they are getting into this. And what we do basically in knowledge graph, basically we don't search the documents, we search the things. The things can be like people like us, or it can be any organization, it can be a place, event, or artifact, anything that we are interested that in knowledge graph. That's why. So it allows us, or it enables the search of the things. And this is what that like when we used to search in Bangalore, if you look at in Bangalore, so you will get like a page, but beside that nowadays you will also see a kind of snapshot that where you see that Bangalore, and it has some kind of structured data available. But of course we know that this is coming from the Wikipedia data set that we get in the right side info box. So from that data it is coming. But of course we know that Google has a very large knowledge graph already, and they are, of course, it's like incremental, they are building it up, and they are already into that. Okay, so this result, you can say that it's coming from the Google knowledge graph at the end. And so there are many other ways that why we need knowledge graph. So first of all, that this enables the capture and explicit expression of human knowledge by connecting or linking the objects and their relationships. It's a tool for connecting various pieces of data. Like here we can see that there are different piece of things, though there are different nodes, so we are able to connect them. It facilitated the easy linking with other external resources, like that we saw in case of linked data. Is in knowledge graph also this is the same thing, but as I said that there is a difference, and that's the difference is only the technological uses. Like of course we are going to see in the following slides shortly the other technologies that are utilized within this knowledge graph. But in linked data already we have seen like RDF is there, HTTP where we are using. So here also it is the case. So it's of course it's enabled for this linking the other external resources, which at the end gives us the more enriched knowledge. It's basically a data model for learning heterogeneous knowledge. So you can actually link the different data points. So here the data points could be like your nurses, your doctors, the countries. It can be the police. This is of course this one was drawn in context of this our COVID knowledge graph, that CODO knowledge graph. But you can see that this knowledge graph in general can connect the multiple data points with very enriched knowledge inside it. A tool to extract insight from data by interlinking and analyzing. So as we already saw yesterday's from the lab session, that we can do a lot of inferencing, reasoning thing. So here these are the dotted lines which expresses that some of the data that some of the information that we can infer, which were actually implicit within our data, of course. But now with this help of the reasoners, that we are able to now make them explicit. Okay, that's what the job of the reasoner. And these are the, you can see that as the dotted lines are the inferent facts. So like here, it is like that most recent test result, and then we say that this has test result and this is test result for, like that. This of course gives an 360-degree views again there, because it connects the various data points. So of course it empowers you to have a 360 views. That means you can see from your dashboard everything that you would like to see. And of course it reduces the job of the query makers, that because in traditional SQL the query that which runs up to like 3 pages, in SparkQL that's just like this is the one very simple query, okay, very small, that itself can actually, both the queries are actually equivalent, but you see that this runs for several pages, and whereas this, so this is another the advantage of using this knowledge graph. Knowledge graph, this is another important, that it forms a backbone for artificial intelligence and the analytics platforms. And this is what we are listening to this statement repeatedly in the last 2 days. And so here the thing is that, even machine algorithm, because from the yesterday's presentation, you saw that the reasoners can explain you, it can tell you why something is something. So here the thing is that when we talk about the machine learning, so there is always a there is some confusion that whether they are the competitors, but honestly they are not the competitors. In fact, they are here to complement each other on the other way. So like for example, in machine learning algorithm can say that person X has a Y% chance of their tumor being cancer, but most machine algorithm cannot explain why it could, why he thinks like that. Okay, but it is here that integrating this machine learning with the KG is a way forward in addressing this issue, because the knowledge graph, the technology that if we adopt, it can actually explain why that we think that person X has this, that has a chance of there being tumor, that tumor can bring a cancer. So it can actually explain. And these are some of the uses that we already know. So I'm skipping this, and just I have very short time now, so I will be just quickly go through. So semantic web, that as we already know, so I'm not touching that. So here these are the technologies that we basically talk about, these semantic web technologies. For when we talk about the knowledge graph, it's basically the same set of technologies we use. So at the end, we can conclude that the semantic web, that what we generally say, and when we talk about the knowledge graph, they are basically interchangeably used. Okay, this is just you can say that I believe that it's a kind of more like a new technical jargon that has been propagated, and I think this industry mostly they have taken it up very well. So otherwise, the technology wise, you see that these are the core technologies that are used in case of that if you want to have your knowledge graph. Say for example, like like IRI, HTTP IRI, and then you have this RDF schema, OWL, Sparkle. Then you need some rule language and the reasoners. So these are the technologies that we are already exposed to that. So I'm skipping all these technologies that we already know. And yes, so yeah, this is what the reasoner that yesterday we saw, that how it can explain you the reason of behind this concluding something or inferencing something. Now I quickly go through, take you through this Kodo. So Kodo actually is a COVID ontology that we built it during the pandemic, because I started like in a way that thinking that, okay, these data are available because every day we see multiple websites that time were, created. Every day I used to see that every organization, every people, they are saying, okay, this is my data portal. And what they do, they just, fetch the data from outside the other side, and then they probably generate some static graph and all these things. So I was thinking that, well, that's good, but then what we can do, whether we can apply the semantic technologies. And that's the way that the idea of COVID ontology, that Kodo, came into that picture. So this Kodo work can be seen in two components, like it's a Kodo ontology and the Kodo knowledge graph. So the Kodo ontology that yesterday's during the lab session, I showed you that documentation page. So this is basically a kind of T box that where we have this, to enable people or any agencies, data agencies, like it can be an hospital or an any government agencies that they want to publish their data. In that case, they can actually use that our ontology, because it's already ready, just they need to put their data inside in, and they can publish it, which will be machine processable form. So that's also the this Kodo ontology goals was to an explicit ontology for use by data and service providers to publish COVID-19 data using the FAIR principle. That was our primary goal. And it use cases like knowledge graph creation, annotation of COVID-19 literature. Even if you have that, all the websites, they have this COVID-19 literature, they can probably utilize our ontology, if not full, as a partially, to annotate, to tag their data to their website. And then application design, like there are already some applications are developed using this our Kodo ontology, like COVID-19 risk detection system. And then ontology, yeah, these are the success stories that, as I said, that there is already an application that who use that our Kodo ontology, and then there are many other research communities so have shown their interest on that. And this one was that our the main design ontology that you can go later to this. And also, of course, yesterday we have shared with you some of the materials related to the ontology development process. This is the building blocks. I skip that. And this is that the Kodo knowledge graph. That's the part that within 1 minute I will try to finish it. So here the thing is that this basically we built this Kodo knowledge graph with primarily two goals. That one is that transforming this COVID-19 data as the FAIR semantic data and Kodo ontology, and second one goal was that Kodo ontology evaluation. So the FAIR semantics, of course, that today's our next speaker, my friend Dr. Clement Jonkwi is already online, so he will be talking about it, I think, more. But it's basically like, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable, in a sense that you make your data satisfying these four things, and under that we have like 15 plus principles for each of these aspects. Like for findable, what are the things you should do, for accessible, what you should do, like that. So there are a couple of principles that we have under this FAIR umbrella, or the FAIR principles. So this one was that our knowledge graph, and this is a kind of knowledge graph that where we could actually ask that very complex questions. Like in the first my presentation, that on introduction to semantic web, I was talking about that some complex queries. So here is the one that we can have any type of queries, that any complex queries that you want to ask, you can ask, provided that of course the data is inside. Okay. And so like here, like we said that, like, so the patients with the possible reasons of catching COVID-19 also display the relationships between the patients, if any. Okay. And this is the query, and that it results it like a huge graph, and we have given just a small snapshot of that. Similarly, here we have a query like that. Okay, if there is any patient, you show their travel history basically. Okay, from where they traveled, because this data, this graph was based upon the COVID-19 data of India. So our goal was to show that, okay, all these patients, they basically traveled from which country. Okay, that was there. And then we wanted to further see that from where they, after reaching there, where they traveled to. Okay, so we wanted to know their travel history, and this is the graph, and this is a small snapshot of it. Again, these are like it fetched up like few 100,000. So our proto knowledge graph so far, of course, we have stopped working on it since September 2020. So this, the result is coming from the up to the September 2020, that we had like 0.3 millions of axioms. Then we had okay, sorry, this is actually the very old data. I'm sorry, because I forgot to update it. Actually, we have the individuals like 75,000 plus individuals. And then we had also more number of, I think, some around 90 classes, then object properties, and also I think it remained more or less same. There was no much increase, but there was the increase like in the number of the individuals, and obviously the axioms. And so the challenge, of course, that as we said, that always there is a challenge, like the data availability. Whenever we talk about the knowledge graph, is T-box is a one-time job that you develop it, but it's the A-box that which needs more, it needs more data, and data availability always is a problem. Then data, the purity of the data, that's another problem, the quality that I was talking about. And so take home message is that graph data is inevitable, and graph is powerful way of representing the data. And so, because that the graph is everywhere, if you look at this, our participants, us and all, that you see that within us also there exists a graph, right? It's a network. So everywhere network is there, and henceforth this graph data is inevitable. Graph is a very powerful way of representing the data. Graph can solve many present day data integration and other related tasks, and that's what we are going to see in our next session and also in today's lab session. And then knowledge graph and machine learning are not technologies that compete with each other, but rather solve different problems. So these are some of my references, and thank you. Yeah, so I stop here.